Supercharge community, how's it going? Here, I'm Mentor here with HoarderGamer. Today we have Gui Agustini. I'm pretty sure I said that last name correct as well. I know we confirmed the first
Yes.
name. Okay.
Yes, you did. You did.
I love how the name rhymes. It just flows off the tongue so organically. Gui Agustini. I love that name. But how you doing today?
Thank you, man. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mike. I'm doing great, man. It's been a whirlwind, but I'm doing good. It's the first weekend in LA. Because I'm based in LA. My first weekend at home for the last like 3 months. It's been wild. I've been traveling a lot, so yeah.
We have been scheduling you to appear for it feels like months at this
I
point.
know, and I
But it's just the
and I and
time
I hate
zones.
this. I hate it, but I really appreciate you guys, the patience and all of that. I'm very, very lucky that I've been very busy, obviously, with everything X-Men related. You will talk more about it, the cons and all that to me have been obviously brand new this year, but especially the last few months. But I was also on a birthday trip, and then I've been auditioning, thankfully, for a lot of different projects, and those. Yeah, I'm just working a lot. It's been crazy. So
You're being productively busy, as I like to call it.
yes, yes.
Before we get into X-Men and Sunspot, and I know Hoarder has a specific project he wants to talk about. However, I would love just to give the superhero community an idea of how you got into this, like how you started the acting journey. And
So yeah, the acting journey started. Funny enough, in Venezuela, right before I moved to the U.S., I was a tennis player and I wanted to play professionally. So I was living there from all places. I traveled quite a lot in my teen years, and I met my coach over there that transformed my life in many ways. And a few months before, I had already gotten the scholarship to come to the U.S. I went to a small town in South Carolina called Greenwood. Greenville is the nearest big town. And I was just there like a few months ago, 15 years later, to talk to the students. So that was pretty amazing. But I started modeling in Venezuela, and I started like booking these print campaigns for the first time, making money. I was super happy. And then I went to a Subway commercial audition, and I was horrible. I had to act. I had never acted in my life. I had to improvise. So I asked my agent for a recommendation for an acting class, basically, because I thought it was like this a trick that you learn. And and then they did, and I went to this woman who actually studied at the actor studio in New York. And I was riveted by the class, only professional actors, people who have been, studying for years, theater, like really kind of underground. And I fell in love with it. I knew a bit of psychology through sport, and I loved it. So that really spoke to me. So that's where my first like acting experiences happened. I went to two different studios there, and when I came to the U.S., my college, Lander University, had a theater program. I joined the theater program. I did my first play there called Picnic. And then from there, it's just like went on and on. I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. I quit tennis. I moved to Florida because I was going to be there just for the summer to study, at more like professional studios and whatnot. And then I'm like, this is Miami. I speak Spanish just as fluently as Portuguese, and so that I fit right in, and I was enthralled by like all the different acting schools and studios. I audited everything. Actually, my first American acting workshop was with Aaron Spicer, who at the time had coached Will Smith and J Lo and Gerard Butler in all of their movies. And that was my introduction to Uta Hagen. So anyway, I studied all methodologies, and I went to like I quit tennis. I was studying at Broward College as well to get my associate's degree, as I was studying acting in all kinds of places. And then after that, I got my work permit, and I started to do small parts in telenovelas and in commercials. I booked a lot of commercials, which actually was my into the SAG world. For those who don't know, like the actors union, and yeah, and so then I never looked back. I immersed myself in that world. From Florida, I moved to New York to attend an acting conservatory for 2 years, and voiceover starts actually in that transition because my agent at the time in Miami had worked for the agency that I still am with, represented by. And she told me after you graduate, because I couldn't have representation or be auditioning while I was in the conservatory. So for 2 years, I knew I wasn't going to reach out. But she was like, once you graduate, let me know. I'll put you in contact with the agent. But it's better if you have a voiceover reel because you speak different languages, multiple languages, and they like in the commercial world to potentially represent both on camera and voiceover. Had never done voiceover in my life, so I just did a couple of different reels, Portuguese, Spanish, English, with somebody in Miami. Had that with me for 2 years. I had the meeting and they brought me in and since I've been represented by the same agency for voiceovers and commercials, but it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles after the pandemic that I started really auditioning for animation, and that's how Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, comes to me, and I auditioned for it, and here I am.
Awesome.
That's incredible. The fact that you like the reason why I love asking that question with the super guest is because the stories are all so unique. Like to hear
Yes.
you went from tennis to acting is such a drastic leap of faith, I feel, because it's like
Yeah.
completely different skill sets. Like, and then
Yeah.
you slowly got into voice acting, and I believe Hoarder has a specific question I really wanted to give him time to ask because he's been
Yes.
so excited for this all week. So Hoarder,
So
please go ahead.
I happen to be on IMDb looking at a number of credits. What can you tell us about a character and a project you were in where you played a character named Carmelo?
Ooh, my God, this is so funny. Oh wow. Okay, let me tell you first why I had this reaction because literally, I think it was yesterday, 2 days ago. I talked about it with my friend that I'm working with in several different projects, who was in that project as well. That's a Nickelodeon TV show.
Yes.
I don't know how to. I mean, in English it would be 1111. It's such a long title. I don't even know how to like translate it. But it was basically like this building and these kids, teenagers, and the building. Certain areas of the building had like magical powers, so they had like magical powers. Literally, and I played this homeless who then found this bed, who's a magical bed, and then I would become a rich kid, and I would transform, right? So that was my biggest role at the time. It was like a what we would say in the American market, a recurring guest star. So I had several episodes, and I acted a lot with a legend from Venezuela, actually, in the TV and theater world. And so anyway, it was a great experience for me. But 2 days ago, I was speaking with my friend who was in that show, and the director. Well, there had, I think, a couple directors, but I think the main director of that show. And I don't think I should. I can't even say that. I'm not gonna even see. You guys will deduct it or whatever. But the director of that show um, was one of the executive producers, or maybe the main executive producers of the 1997 Anaconda movie
Oh,
with
Oh,
J
jeez.
wow.
Lo, which I have something to do with it, and I was like, I couldn't even believe it. So anyway, that was the reaction. But what I can talk about that series is that it was like such a. I had done another Nickelodeon project which was super big, called Grachi. I was in the second season, Grachi 2 or Grachi Dos, and that was also like something that I had recurring. And then Carmelo was my first, like, had a name, and I had this like arc, and so it was pretty exciting. However, I never got to see it. I actually asked him. I was like, because he lives in Mexico, and that really like came out in Mexico and stuff. But it wasn't apparently a hit. It was actually a flop. I think they wanted to be like Grachi. So I never really. I tried years later to get my footage. I wanted to. I saw some little snippets. I actually have a couple that I've posted through the years. But I don't have all my scenes, and I was always curious to know how they turned out. But I'm now so curious to know, Hoarder, how, like, why that question and why were you excited? Like, what? I'm so curious.
Well, I'm a big fan of, like, absurd and bizarre things. So
That's true.
like I'm reading through your credits, and all of a sudden the one that really stuck out was the homeless boy who finds a magical bed that makes him rich. And I'm sitting there as I read that, and I'm like, did I just read something? Is that correct? Like, is that the date? Because I'm thinking, like, I didn't know who wrote this in IMDb. Sometimes it would be you, or it would be someone that like an agent or something, but it could also be, I think, people like Wikipedia can put things in possibly. So I was like, I just wanted to see exactly what that was. I had to know.
Wow. Thank you. No, but that was spot on. I didn't even know that was written it that way. But yes, that's absolutely correct, and it was probably from production. I'm gonna actually share the clip that I have it somewhere in my phone. Even I'm gonna share it, and I'm gonna tag you guys, and the people who are
Awesome.
listening, if they want to see it, they can see it.
Yeah,
Very
when
cool.
when
Very cool.
when Hoarder came to me with that question and he told me the synopsis of the show, I was like, I'm sorry, what? He like this sounds absurd to the point that I felt it would have been a hit, but you just mentioned it actually wasn't, and
It
I'm
wasn't. Yeah.
surprised it wasn't because that's just the synopsis itself was like hilarious. And I was
Yes.
like, yeah, you
Yes.
definitely got to ask him that question because I'm now curious. Secondly, we wanted to so before Sunspot, was there any favorite X-Men or X-Men character that you
That I
were like related to, that you really enjoyed, that you studied, that you grew up, watching or reading?
Yeah, for sure. Number one was Wolverine
Of
from the
course.
cartoon, from the original cartoon. I mean, yeah, I wasn't very inventive. Though I've been saying also Gambit. I remember being a big
Mm,
fan of Gambit, but I don't know. I don't think I ever had the action figure for sure, Wolverine. And then, the movies came out, and I mean, at the time, I didn't think about it, but I was like, why wasn't Gambit part of the whole thing? From the anyway. I never really went into like digging the reason why. Maybe you guys know, but yeah, Wolverine for sure. And then the movies, Hugh Jackman, and then all the Logan movies. So definitely that was my number one.
I mean, it's fair to have those questions because I know my introduction personally was the X-Men animated series in the '90s. That's where I was like, oh, these guys are cool. Like they're all seem pretty badass. Like they're a family.
Yeah.
And then the live action movies came out, and I'm like, what happened? Like, how did you go from a very successful animation series to a live action? And I had the same questions too. I'm like, why is this character not involved? Like, this character was a huge person or a huge part of the animation. Um, so, with that being said, did you enjoy the animation more, comics, or did you enjoy the live action more?
I think at the time, I'd say, I mean, once the movies came out, I know I was really into them. So I wasn't like bummed, or I wasn't like, oh, I was such a big fan of the cartoon. Like I was super young and I liked anything superhero, but I think like X-Men might have been the first or one of the first like superheroes. Obviously, there's a lot of like Batman and He-Man. I was a huge fan of He-Man. Oh my God, the movie! I was obsessed with that movie. But all the stuff that was showing in Brazil, yeah, that I would consume, and so I loved them all. But by the time the movies came out in the 2000s, I was a little bit more like into tennis already. I was getting a little bit more serious, and so I was not a comic book reader. I was not a big reader, growing up, and I've been saying this, unfortunately, but it's the truth. And so I was always a big lover of movies. My dad loved movies, and so yeah, I just loved them. I remember loving the Power Rangers when the movies came out. Oh my God, the Power like I was into all of the like movies, action, anything like that. So I wasn't like bummed, or I wasn't that big of a fan of the cartoon in the sense of like nitpicking. I just remember having the thought, but mostly, now looking back, I'm like, oh, this is so weird. At the time, I was just so excited, and so I loved it. I loved them all. Yeah.
I can understand that. I remember I saw the first two X-Men live action movies in theaters, and I was really I enjoyed them. I had the questions, but more so I was like, I want to see where they go with this. And then when they introduced Nightcrawler, I still feel like that's one of the best introductions in like a comic themed movie that we've ever seen. I really
Right.
enjoyed that. Hoarder, do you have his next question follow up? That way I don't take all the time here and you feel left out.
Yes.
I'm very respectful with that because I understand I, like Yugi, can talk and talk and talk. And I know Hoarder just like, oh my God, hero, shut up.
Ah, I have never said that.
Yeah, you guys are a
I may have
team.
thought that, but I've never said it.
It's a thought
You
that
guys are a
counts, I
team
guess. It's a
there.
thought
That's a
that
good
counts.
balance.
So, my question for you then, Guy, is do you have a favorite performance either in TV, movie, play, musical, anything, a favorite performance that you derive inspiration from?
Wow, I was never asked that. I was thinking first that you were gonna say that that I did, but I was hoping you would go that way, that route, which would be just as hard. But a specific performance. Oh my God. That
Put you on the spot here. We put you on the spot.
I know it's so hard because I try to do like I want to be really honest and genuine, which I am, but it's like I don't have something in particular. I'm gonna go back to something that really moved me when people ask me for my favorite movie and or actor or actress. It'll always be because I'm still a big fan and it has had a big impact in me. Titanic and
Okay.
and DiCaprio's performance in that movie, right? I'm a big fan of DiCaprio's in general, and with Romeo plus Juliet also kind of the same time. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I've watched that movie so many times growing up with this friend of mine that I grew up going to. We would like do like what? How do we say that? We would sleep in each other's houses and stuff, and
Oh,
then like the
sleepovers.
family. Sleepovers,
Yeah.
yes. I was like playing in the expression sleepovers and whatnot. And it was a VHS, and I think we both had the VHSs, but it was in two parts, right? So after a while, we would always jump just to the second VHS, just the middle to the end, I watched it over 20 times most likely. So anyway, that's something that comes to mind. And even like when I started my training when I was in Miami, I went to this acting school and the teacher director he would put us on camera and we would work on scenes from movies and TV shows, and we actually did a scene from Titanic, and I was like, oh my God, here I am like doing my moment of like DiCaprio. Anyway, yeah, but also like Will Smith, who I'm a big fan of as well. Uh, uh, Russell Crowe in Beautiful Mind.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like those movies really, um, those performances like moved me a lot. Like in my teen years specifically. So yeah, I mean after that, I mean there's so many, so many legends, so many like powerful moments. But yeah, those for sure is just, people that I like look up to and I take inspiration or motivation from.
See,
Awesome. Yeah.
I love the answer, and I was laughing to myself when you said you got to act out a scene from Titanic, and I was like, he better have called himself Leonardo DiCaprio. Like he better have done
Oh
that
my
because
God.
it just it
That's like something I
flows so
couldn't do. Yeah.
well. And secondly, I'm surprised when you and I first connected was on one of your live videos, and I made sure that I made sure that I brought this up. But you didn't mention anything from Ben Affleck, considering you have such a physical resemblance to him. I figured like that would be like a
That's
natural
true.
like I love Ben Affleck in I don't know Pearl Harbor or something.
Pearl Harbor for sure. I love that movie. It wasn't until later that I actually realized it was Ben Affleck. It's crazy. At the
No,
time,
it
I
was
didn't really
you.
know.
It was actually you in a whole different dimension. It was a whole
But
multiverse
I
thing.
started. I started to get Ben Affleck just a few years ago, and my mom like was like, "Oh my God, he looks so much like Ben Affleck." And when I was doing, um, for those who don't know, I actually was Theo James's acting double in The Time Traveler's Wife. So
Oh, neat.
big big part of why I guess I got that job, or at least I got the audition, is because my resemblance to Theo, which
Damn.
I never saw. I actually did not know Theo that well at all. I hadn't seen the Divergent movies. I had seen him in The Crown, but I didn't know he was in. Anyway, but kudos to my manager at the time, submitted me, and then like there are some, I have some like stills and stuff. Like it's crazy with the same kind of haircut that they put me on and everything. And when we were doing the wigs, like we look very similar. There are some angles. It's literally like we're twins. So it's pretty wild. But then I remember I was in Chicago. That story takes place in Chicago. We shot it mostly in New York, but we went to Chicago for a couple of weeks. And I had this photo that I think I posted or something in my I like I think the angle or whatever. My mom was like, "Oh my God, this is so Ben Affleck." And then like a couple of people that were on set were like, "Oh my God, he looks so much like Ben Affleck." So anyway, um, yeah, I would love to play Ben Affleck's young brother or whatever. I don't know.
Like you mentioned Theo
Me?
James, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't recognize that name. But then you mentioned Divergent, I'm like, oh, I can see that now. I can definitely
Right.
see that. I can definitely
Well,
see
and
that.
and then after Time Travelers, he did, White Lotus season 2 is so successful, and now he did The Gentleman. He did a few movies prior to that too, after the Divergent series. But the Divergent was, I think his first big studio.
I actually love that series. I know that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
had a lot of like negative reviews, but me personally, the fiance, her and I, like we saw them in the theaters. And I'm like, these are so cool. Like they're just so
yeah.
unique. And so let's dive into Sunspot before we dive further into your entrepreneur side of yourself. But I would love to just dive into Sunspot, how that happened, how you got that role, and let's go from there.
Okay. So, like I said before, when I moved to LA, I started to audition for animation, and I think, because I auditioned for it twice. I auditioned once in 2021, and I don't know, because 2021 I was in New York shooting The Time Traveler's Wife. So I moved here in 2020 to LA, and then I went back to New York. I stayed there the whole year. And I know my first audition was in 2021, but I can't remember. I mean, I've always been saying fall, so I don't know. Maybe I was in my apartment in New York, and that's when I auditioned, or maybe it was a little bit later when I went to the holidays in Brazil, because for whatever reason, I feel like I was in Brazil when I did it. But anyway, um, I never knew it was Roberto. It was a Sunspot. I didn't know Sunspot by that name. Again, I didn't see the New Mutants. I was not from the comic world. But I've been saying this as well, like through the panels I've been doing these last few months. Everybody in my from the cast, one way or another, figured out that it was X-Men '97 or X-Men. I never did, and so I was just like, it's another animation. It's Brazilian. I did what they asked me, and I sent it out, and so never heard back. A few months later, I think about 6 months later, in the spring of 2022, then I was already here. Had just moved to LA. I think in February, I was relocated, waiting for the premiere of The Time Traveler's Wife, waiting to know if we are gonna get picked up for second season, which we didn't, because then I would go back to New York. But here I am, and then I got it again, and I remembered like I already auditioned for this, but it wasn't like the first time that's happened to me in an audition in general. So I was like, oh, you tape it again. So I taped it again, and I think about 2 months later, I got the email from my agent saying that I was going to be a superhero, and I was obviously super excited. Then I was in New York. I was in New York at a friend's place, a writer friend of mine who actually wrote this short film that we are in festivals for, called To the End, Greg Fusco. And I was at the time doing motion capture for video games, that you might have seen in my MDB, that I worked on Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5. So I would go back to New York to do that, and I was there. And then I got that email, and I was like, "What superhero? What did I audition for?" I don't remember, my audition saying it was a superhero or anything, just an animation. And then as I continued to read, and I got to the contract, it said X-Men '97, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was super super excited. Obviously, couldn't say much, but in fact, I did tell Greg. I
Ah,
did tell Greg, but Greg's like family. So, and I didn't know that X-Men '97 had been announced. Like I was so oblivious to the whole thing. Through the pandemic, I hadn't been following Marvel that much and watching the latest movies, even the New Mutants. I didn't know it existed until I was doing all my research, and I'm like, oh wow. And he was played by a Brazilian um, actor for the first time, Henry Zaga, and so yeah, Zaga. No, I don't want to say his last name Americanized. Henry
ah.
Zaga, Henry Zaga. But anyway, yeah. So that's how it happened.
So, like, it sounds like you didn't really have to change your voice that much for the role.
Right. I didn't. I think like the main thing was, it said like he was a teenager, he was 18, he was a raver, all these things. And I think I naturally sound on the younger side.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my audition, maybe, a little bit, put on a little spin, even when I hear, now the recordings though, like I often, there's just a little quality that's a little bit, um, brighter and younger.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It
but
doesn't sound exactly like you or anything. No.
but the main thing was they wanted a Brazilian accent and a neutral accent. So when I speak these days, I sound, I guess, more American than anything. And then when I put on a Brazilian accent, it has to be something thick. So I can do just a little something. So I
Ah.
said both versions, and when I started recording, that was one of my first questions, and I wanted to stay, true to the character and everything. Though I had done obviously my research, and in the comics, which I didn't know at the time, that was how it was going to be portrayed in '97. Uh, his mother is American, full on American, right? So, but I didn't know in this case it wasn't going to be this way or that way. So I started doing a much thicker accent, and the production continuously asked of me to bring it down and tone it down up to the point where I was like, I don't really have to have an accent because he grew up with both languages, and his father is so rich and his mother is American. It's probably like just like grew up with Spanish and Portuguese, and I've met so many people who are like that, and so they don't have an accent in either language. Or sometimes they speak three languages and they have no accent, right? Like I do now, but for a different reason. With English, it was like a lot of work and a lot of practice. But so anyway, I was like, oh, this makes sense. So it changed, evolved and changed, but a little bit stayed in there. I think thankfully, it gives. I think there's a mixture throughout the season, and there's moments that you hear more of an accent, and other moments that you don't, which also plays really well, I think. But yeah, so it was a process. But to your question, yes. I mean, and even when I started recording, they were, Bo DiMaggio and the whole team, they were like, this is not a kids show, so just we're gonna play it as grown up as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that was a lot of the note that I got, which was like, oh, okay, great. I don't have to like, it's not creating a character per se, right? So, which was fun, obviously, to just like an acting is not so much of a character work, as you hear like in acting, is just landing, um, our or my natural, a little bit of the, like I said, the pitch or the intonation, but just landing a lot of my own like personal view and experiences to Roberto and Sunspot in this case.
Like, was there any points that you struggled with performance? Like, was there some scenes you're just like, wow, this is really powerful, and you got to figure out a way to get into that scene?
Mm,
Because there was a lot of powerful moments for that character.
yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that, Dave. And really, like, it wasn't until it came out, and it wasn't until I started, uh, very thankfully, a lot of positive feedback and people relating to it that really, like, uh, I don't know, I really, felt it that way when I was doing it. My whole sole focus was like, how do I just do my best with that particular moment, which is always my goal with any acting moment, right? So I had no clue of, like, I've said this many times too, like the impact that was going to have in people, right? So yeah, definitely there were moments that were harder than others. I think, like, in a general sense, um, more than the emotionality, I think, like, again, figuring out the acts, because also, he was born in Rio. I'm from Sao Paulo. I was so worried about that, which I do online get, from Brazilians, a lot of, criticism and feedback, which is fine. I'm totally okay with it. But I was very conscientious of, like, how do I want to portray the accent? What I want to do? How do I stay true? So that was, to me, my number one, right? How much of an accent? How not of an accent? What's the balance, right? And especially all the lines that I say in Portuguese. And then when it comes to the emotional moment, like, there's a lot of also words that were not very easy to pronounce. So, like, the preparation of that, and then, like, yeah, the emotional moments, like that I got asked about. I mean, that first episode, looking back now, like, to me, I think is one of, for Roberto, like, I think it is my favorite episode now, because it's, I think, the moment that you see Roberto, well, I mean, apart from episode 4, but I think, like, the different emotionalities that you have, that arc that he has in that episode, like having the scene with Wolverine, my favorite character growing up, and then that ending moment with Jubilee, that for many people, together with the moment with his mother, is like people's favorite. That little monologue, that was so powerful, and then he switches to the humor, to one of my favorite lines that people ask me to. What's my favorite line from Roberto? And it is after he gives Jubilee the card, and he goes, like, "Don't forget single." I love that line. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, just like, it's always like doing my best to relate to it in a personal level, and then in that moment, just give my all, and then again, like, we're so lucky to have an incredible team of of great artists and, directors, like Meredith Lane, who's a voice booth
Mm-hmm.
director, who's amazing, and, is like guiding us, and we're playing with the options, with the lines, and so it makes for it all, like, so much more fun, and more interesting, and and like any acting, like, you, especially here, you do so many different versions, many different ways, and you don't know what they're gonna pick, how it's gonna come out. So then you're just waiting and hoping that it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hoarder. I'm going to let you answer the next question. However, before I allow you to do that, I need to ask. You mentioned the booth director. So, are you saying that you guys recorded individually your guys' scenes, or did you ever do group recordings with the other cast?
No,
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
recorded
Oh,
separately.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
Except
was.
for a couple of people at certain moments, I heard, like, they did, but not like physically in the same space. They were, virtually connected at the
Gotcha.
same time. I think,
Ah.
Matthew Watterson, with, I don't know if it was with Ross, or I forget with who, but I think he did a couple sessions that he had somebody else. But yeah, most of us, everybody on their own.
Gotcha. Okay.
But Meredith Lane is our booth director, that
Gotcha.
that works with the actors. So she's the one guiding us and reading with us, and, of course, a lot of the production team is also connected virtually, but she's the one that is always talking to us, and then seeing what they think, and it goes that way.
Because, like, I just thought it'd be such a good come full circle moment for you to perform with Cal Dodd, like alongside Cal, like,
Yeah.
your favorite character, he performed him, so it's like that would have been a fun moment. But you've probably have had some appearances with Cal at cons and stuff, so you probably have met him in person, which was probably a huge moment for you.
I have, and it's been amazing, and I love Kyle, and I'm been very lucky that he's he likes me, and he's always happy to see me, and we have a good time. Yeah, I've seen him multiple times. I mean, just this last weekend at New York Comic Con. But even during the premiere where we all mostly met each other, except from the original cast who knew each other before. Everybody's meeting for the first time
Mm-hmm.
at that fan event that we had here in Los Angeles. And afterwards, at the after party, Kyle with his wife Donna, they were at a table right next to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is Kyle." I was so nervous. I was with my friends, and I'm like, "Can you guys?" So they came with me. I said hello, and then and then I have the photo from that day, my first photo with Kyle, and then like we did a podcast interview together on YouTube with Miguel from Toy Quest
Mm-hmm.
101, and they had been friends for years, and so that was really awesome. That's when I think we really like linked and whatnot, and then continue to see each other at cons and yeah, so at the panels and everything. Yeah, it's such a joy. I have a thrill to see Kyle, to be with Kyle, and yeah, hopefully I get to do other scenes and hopefully even record together. That'd be so dreamy. But I actually I think I had forgotten. I forgot so much when I started watching it. And so at that day that they showed 3 episodes, I was obviously extremely nervous just to watch to see how I was gonna sound, how it's going to be. But then like I had forgotten about that scene in the danger room with Wolverine. So I was like, oh my God, it's just so amazing.
I love to hear that
Just
for you. Love to hear that.
yeah, thank you.
Because
Thank
it's
you.
like it's such
And
a
then,
surreal moment to just have that with one of your favorite characters growing up. So I'm
it
proud that
really
you were
is.
able to experience that because that's overwhelming. I think that would be for me.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
All right, Hoarder.
And then like on another note, a little
Oh
like
yeah.
ironically, so wildly, Theo James voices Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's true.
so
That's right. I
Oh,
forgot about
right.
that.
So then in episode 10, the last episode, I have my moment with Theo James. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of
that's
crazy. Yeah.
awesome.
I was figured I'd get your moment with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's the next goal for
There you
you.
go. It's coming. It's coming. One of like I will never forget this. One of the well, I just hope that Leo is really clean with everything that's been happening.
Right?
I didn't want
That's
to say
true.
this, but that's the only thing that I hope. But like this one of the biggest like first mentors that I had, or like one of those angels in my life that really pushed me or planted a seed. I think it was the first one who planted a seed about acting when I was in Venezuela. Um, he was, he. I don't think he acts anymore. I don't know. We've lost touch, but he had been a household name in Venezuela for years, and so anyway, I remember like at one point he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna shake hands with DiCaprio, you gotta go to Hollywood and stuff like that." And so that never like left my brain and my heart. I'm like, okay, well, I'm manifesting that. I believe the power of manifestation, though that's not, it's a dream, but it's okay. But it could happen. I'd be so thrilled if that was the case one day.
100%. Hoarder, you can take the next one before I talk too much.
Sure, sure. What character would you like to portray that you haven't? And would you prefer to portray that character animated or live action?
So a character I have not portrayed yet that I would love to.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, my dream role, though, also embarrassingly enough, I did not fully watch Game of Thrones, but I'm a big like I love medieval stuff. Right, I grew up watching. Um, my God, I'm blanking on the name now. Anyway, I love horses. I love medieval wars movies and stuff like that. So I want to play a knight. I want to play a
Awesome.
knight. And now I feel like there's because for many years I was like, yeah, you have to be having a British accent. You have to this and that. Or even like the Zorro, kind of like the Antonio Banderas, like, but something with swords, with horses, like, but now things have been changing a lot. You see Pedro Pascal in Game of Thrones and all this
Yeah.
kind of things. And so, anyway, a knight is still in my heart. And then actually a few months ago in a interview, I was like, yeah, I never thought of it, but maybe it could even be like animated, and that would be even like uh a little bit quote unquote easier. I don't know. Who knows? Not easier, but just like that I don't have to have a particular specific accent or look a particular way. And so maybe my dream will come true one way or another. But yes, that is a big one for me. Um, and I hope the universe one day makes it happen. I've been very fortunate, very lucky, especially since the pandemic, all these serendipitous moments happening in my life. For instance, my first dream, as a teenager, was to be a professional tennis player. It didn't happen in the professional tennis tour, but this year I played a professional tennis player in Elsbeth, a new CBS TV show. So that was a full circle moment. I couldn't even believe it. He was like literally Rafael Nadal of that, like coming back from retirement. Like literally, I was like, whoa, this is so wild. So maybe it's still in store for me, and I would love that.
So
So
definitely get your agent on the phone, have them call HBO, look into House of a Dragon, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Or something brand new. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Or like in a movie. And I was trying to remember the name of the movie when um, oh my God, it's Russell Crowe did a version of it that it was okay. I didn't love it, but the original is from Kevin Costner. Oh my God, the thief. He steals the
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Robin Hood.
I was so
Yes.
blanked. I'm like, I don't know. I need more.
Robin Hood. Yes,
Robin
that
Hood.
was.
Okay.
I was obsessed with that movie. So just stuff like that.
Cool.
Would you be okay if it was a video game performance?
Yeah,
Because that's
I would be
probably
okay with that.
very possible with all these new games
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah,
Like I can definitely see
yeah,
you doing a performance on like Chivalry 3 if that ever becomes a thing. I don't know if you're
there we
familiar
go.
with Chivalry. Chivalry 2
I'm
is
not.
tremendous. It's basically a video game where you are back in the days of knights and horses and wars, and you basically it's first person and you are a knight. So
Oh,
it's pretty badass. And
I'm gonna
it's
look
just
it up.
like
Okay,
yeah,
all right, there you
Chivalry
go.
2,
Yeah.
it's tremendous. It's a good time. Let's dive into your entrepreneurial side. I know acting in a way can be entrepreneurial. However, you have a brand that I felt you and I said this in your live video on Instagram. I said you and I would definitely align with this conversation because you spoke of Tony Robbins and so many other amazing people that I follow. But you have a brand that is driven on impact. So I would love to dive into that because I know that you
Oh,
would
thank
love to
you.
have a conversation about that as well.
Sure, I really appreciate it, especially now, like the last 2 months after my birthday trip. Like I've been really I've always been passionate like since I started almost a year ago, but now like I'm really creating a bigger team. I am, putting out content more and more and more. So I really appreciate you bringing it up. It's called Impacto, and our main purpose, our main mission is to create a positive impact in people's lives. I just feel like that's to me like just a personal uh, purpose of my being in this planet, and so that brand was a way to start to create something in a entrepreneur way, as you mentioned. And so we sell hoodies, t-shirts, and tank tops that have like different slogans and have different designs that represent the power of starting again, of like motivation, of like it's never too late. The logo is basically a fire sign with a phoenix inside. I've always been a big fan of the Phoenix, not because of X-Men, from a different. It is unfortunately from a different show that it wasn't super big here in the U.S. called Zodiac Knights. Knights, talk about knights. It's a huge anime, and it was huge in Brazil, in Latin America, and that's how I became familiarized with the Phoenix. And so I've always loved, that concept of rising from the ashes when you're down, and the power of fire and all this stuff. So that's where it all kind of came from. And we decided, we had different ideas, my partner and I, and the one that we could make this a reality to start was to do this online business. It's all online with print on demand via our Shopify account, and then to really go along with with the extra positive impact, we will be donating 10% of our net profit to this incredible organization here in Los Angeles that work with the homeless called the Midnight Mission,
Awesome.
which I had volunteered a few times, and I love the work that they do, and everything that they're about. So it made sense to start that way, though I've been saying, we're just baby steps. It's pennies at the moment, but obviously we want to, increase and grow in many ways for the next, years, because I'm very passionate about it, and hopefully eventually I'll be able to also create something artistically with it. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts there, but yes, thank you for bringing it up. You guys can check out our Instagram at Impacto Shop. The website is impactostore.com, and we're going to be launching a new design very, very soon that I'm really excited about.
Cool.
And look, and it really, I mean, I was already cast as Sunspot. I was already recording, but it's so crazy because it had nothing to do. I was always, a lover of the sun. I was always a lover. I've been saying this, even like Sunspot, it's the power of manifestation in a way, because, when Instagram had that fire emoji, not emoji, that fire filter, I would use it so much because I loved it. That was my main filter. And that was 2020, like it was 2020, 2021. And when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I've posted a couple of times. I have this photo because I cross country with a friend, and I had a friend of mine create, like, it's me on the road and I have a phoenix coming out of me because I went through such a deep, powerful, personal transformation in 2020 that was, brutal in many ways. And so it was representing this new beginning, moving to Los Angeles. I always wanted to be in Los Angeles since I lived in Miami because of movies, and I wanted to be in movies and all of that. So anyway, it made sense to me in that way. I never thought of Roberto, never thought of Sunspot. Again, like I never thought it was gonna, I guess nobody, right? Even from, the 90s, hearing all the cast now, like nobody, X-Men has always been like this wild card. People never thought it was gonna be the hit that it is, and it was gonna have the impact that it does. So I literally, like, I was just recording, it was a job, but I had no idea what I was getting into. So it had nothing to do with it, but now, thankfully and funny enough, it has this serendipitous link, and I love it, because I've always said my inner element is fire, and so I now want to blend it all, in a way. So
Tremendous. And you were, when you did that live where I first connected with you, and I said, hey, and you did the whole, if you have any questions, ask anything. And I was like, yes, like this is my moment to ask you to come on the Super Hour podcast. So I took it. But then you started talking about Impacto, and I'm like, okay, yes, Hoarder knows. I've always been about mental health advocacy and speaking about positivity. Like that's my thing, because like you said, you didn't go into detail, but you said that 2020 was a moment of growth for you. I battled depression, I battled suicide ideation, so I get the whole constant trying to find growth. And I've always been a firm believer that no matter what you choose to do in life, that's a personal goal, there has to be something that's a community goal as well. So that way it's like you have your personal growth, but then you also have this, well, I don't want to be the only person on the mountain, so how can I help other people get there? And it's refreshing to see, because Sunspot, I can definitely see being a character that a lot of youth will align with. Like we've had our characters. Like I grew up very close with Batman, Hulk, and Spider-Man. Like those are the three characters that I'm like, oh my god, they relate with me so much. And that is now you as Sunspot. You can be that character that a youth goes, you know what? I'm dealing with something that's very similar to this, where like there's that one scene, the scene where Sunspot comes out and says, hey, I'm a mutant. And there's a lot of kids who are struggling with coming out, a lot of kids who are struggling with sharing who they are authentically. So I want you to understand the amount of opportunity you have to create impact with Sunspot, And as a result of that, give yourself a pat on the back, because I don't know, maybe you're not aware as to how impactful that character is going to be for a lot of kids, but you should. So a huge congratulations to you for that, because not only are you creating impact through Sunspot, but now you're doing this mission on the side with the hoodies, which I am definitely going to be looking at getting some, because I love hoodies and I love shirts. But I hope you do have some content coming out in regards to impact that have sort of quotes from Sunspot. I think that'd be a really cool thing to see, because he has some pretty cool quotes besides "I'm single." Like, besides that, he has more quotes.
I love it.
Like, you can.
That is the humorous one for the panels, you know.
Exactly. Not the
You're
best for
right.
your
Okay,
hoodies.
maybe. Okay, so see, look, Dave, I so appreciate this, and you gave me the idea. Yeah, maybe, because the way we've been approaching our Instagram, we're only on Instagram right now. We want to do TikTok too, but it's a lot of work, and
It
so, and
is.
I do most of it. So, but the way we do it is like, we have a quote that I talk about, as you've seen, and then we have a post of the product, the products that we have, and so. Yeah, I had never even thought of that. Maybe no. I will find a couple of quotes from Roberto from Sunspot, and then I'll expand on that with my videos. So thank you for that. And then also, um, yes, I mean, this is like, I think I have a little bit more the last couple of months, again, because of the experiences I've been having. I have a little bit more of an understanding of the impact, which obviously makes me so happy and so proud and so grateful. Again, these cons, when people ask me, I'm like, of course I'm so new to it, but I, I'm in awe. I'm impressed. I'm like, filled with so much love. People come to me and the things that they share, it's pretty wild. Again, I had never imagined, the fandom being this way, and again, the impact that it has. So I take it. I don't take it for granted, and hence why, I do my very best to be as active as I can on social with the fans, with people, and then like linking it all, right? So this last few months have been such an opener for me, that I had this in the back of my mind for a few years, wanted to do something. And because of the strike last year, that's when I'm like, I have to do something that's not acting related, that I don't, that won't be, affected by a strike or whatever, if AI takes over, and something that I'm passionate. And so that's where this came from, literally. And it was also another little, dip that I was going through personally. So the idea came from that, and so now, like, I'm putting all my time, my investment of my coins in many different ways into all of it, because I want that to emerge, my acting, my performance. And what you said, it's so beautiful. And again, I thank you, because I've been hearing it from people, how it's impacted them already. Like you said, like, younger people had never known of Sunspot, and now they love Sunspot, or they can relate because of those powerful scenes. So yes, it's really wonderful. So thank you.
No,
What's
not a
really
problem.
awesome too about Sunspot is that, like, he's like the audience character. So it's very cool that Sunspot gets this relationship with Jubilee, because in the original series, Jubilee was kind of like the character that the audience identifies with.
Right.
So that was really awesome. Really awesome.
Right. And look, even today, I did a video. I met Zach, who, at a con of 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. Awesome dude, great artist. He was there with his family. I met his kids, and he actually was. He works. He does such an incredible work with the elderly, and he's in the East Coast, and so he related with Impactor too. So he came to me to talk about it, and he bought my hoodie and everything, and we've been in contact. He's such an awesome guy, such a great heart, and what he does, it's truly impactful and truly wonderful. I mean, that's his job and his mission as well with the company he works with. But then today, I think 2 days ago, he was like, "Yo, my kid finally watched the whole thing. He's seven, and he loved it, and he remembered you, and he loved Sunspot." And I was like, man, like, I was just so moved. So today, earlier, literally right before I stepped into my apartment, I was like, I'm gonna record him a video, and instead of leaving it for later, right after I, like, walking on the street, I'm like, I'm just gonna record the video. So I recorded the video, and I sent it to him via Instagram to show to his, kid, 7-year-old, who loves Sunspot. And so to me, that's really priceless, and
That's
it
awesome.
shows the point that you just mentioned. People are relating, the younger generation are relating to him, and yeah, I feel very, very lucky.
No, it's amazing because the X-Men have always been about politics. It's been about very sensitive subjects that a lot of people usually steer clear from. So when I had Eric and Julie on, who were the original writers of the X-Men '97, sorry, of the original X-Men, it was very important that they spoke about these subjects. And one of my favorite episodes is with Wolverine and Nightcrawler talking about religion. Um,
Hmm.
so
A lot of people love
yeah,
that
it's
episode.
so
Yeah.
powerful, and like we need more of that in our society, where it's like these conversations are, yeah, they can be quite uncomfortable to have, but
Yeah.
it's through that that discomfort we find growth. So it's like we got to have these conversations more. And one of my favorite actresses is Allison Seeley Smith, who plays
Mm.
Storm. She is incredible, and I've always loved Storm because of the animation series, but I'm so glad we were able to cover your career, your start from tennis to acting, which is such a, I still say it's such a crazy leap. And then we covered your Sunspot, we covered Impacto. So where can people connect with you?
Thanks, Dave, again, and Hoarder slash Mike. I appreciate you guys so much. This was so fun. I'm on Instagram primarily at Gui Agustini 1, just my name, number one. I'm on X too, but I don't really go there. I was there when we were like having
I
the
don't
week.
blame you. It kind of changed in 2022.
Yeah, I deactivated mine. I'm like, I'm done. Like,
Look, I like that the name is now X, but again, another like serendipitous thing.
Yeah.
But I was only really active when we were, the weekly episodes were dropping, because a lot of people, like, talk about
hmm
tennis player, Coco Gauff, the American tennis player, was talking about it, posted about it.
That's crazy.
LeBron James was tweeting, "Oh my God, where do I see this?" Like, so a lot of people were, yeah, into it, and we were like trading number one. So I was there. I wanted to see what people were saying, and what they were posting and sharing and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really go there very often. So Instagram, I always share my appearances that I'm doing at comic book stores all over the U.S. The cons that I've been going to, and also like my short films, and anything that I am allowed to share is going to go to my gram. And obviously everything Impactor related, and inspiration, motivational stuff that come to me, that I do my best to share, and hopefully again have that daily dosage of positivity and optimism.
We need it.
Yeah.
So with that all being said, so Instagram is your number one. Um, I'm thinking when season two launches of X-Men '97, that after the launch happens and everyone goes through watching it, we'll have you back on again if that's an interest to you, because
100%.
I'm very excited
100%.
for season two. I'm not going to put you in the spot and ask you any questions about season two because that's not fair
I
to
was
you.
going to. What's your
Hoarder
favorite
is
part
a
of season
hoarder.
two?
So, without much spoilers, what was your favorite scene in season two? But we will definitely love to have you back on after season two launches, because yeah, the X-Men '97 is such a nostalgic series, but it's such a powerful one. It's like if you have if your children have an interest in Marvel or DC, I would definitely encourage families to watch this series together.
Yes.
And
Yes.
maybe if you want to do the full fledged experience, watch the entirety of the original X Men animation series, and then go to. Oh, it's so powerful. The things that your youth will learn. But Guy, on behalf of myself and Hoarder, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to make this happen after all the time
Really,
zone
I
issues,
really am. You
right?
guys, I really am. You guys are so fun. Yeah, man. Look, the time passes so fast, and I really appreciate you guys, being so supportive and the interest and sharing these stories and again, it's just like so loving. I really appreciate it.
Not a
So yeah,
problem.
count me in for next season, absolutely. And thank you to the listeners and everybody. And yeah, if you haven't watched yet, get on it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Guy and Hoarder. Thank you so much. All
Thank
right,
you.
guys. Thank you.